Hello everyone. Wishing you all a joyful new day. Today, I'll continue sharing the story about the single mother, Dieu Hân. It had been more than a week since the criminal escaped from the police, yet the shadow of his presence still loomed over Dieu Hân's life like a thick fog. She couldn't shake the feeling that he was still out there somewhere, lurking in the dark, waiting for the right moment to return. At first, Hân tried to reassure herself that it was only her imagination. Perhaps fear was making her see things. But then whispers began to spread through the neighborhood. A woman who ran a small grocery shop claimed she saw a man in black standing under the tree at the end of the alley late one night. A motorbike driver said that someone had been appearing near Hân's house at dawn, standing silently before disappearing the moment anyone came close. Those scattered bits of gossip slowly pieced together into a growing dread inside her. Every night, whenever the wind rattled her window, Hân's heart skipped a beat. She startled at the sound of barking dogs, at footsteps echoing in the yard, even at someone knocking on the door too hard. She would clutch little Tom tightly in her arms, trembling, hardly daring to breathe. She called the police, and the next day 2 officers came to investigate. They searched around the house, questioned neighbors, and combed through the narrow alleys overgrown with weeds. But the criminal was cunning, constantly changing hiding places, moving only at night, leaving no trace behind. Footprints in the soil behind her house led only to a small canal, disappearing into the muddy water. Officer Tan, the same one who had helped her before, also returned, his eyes sharp as he scanned the surroundings. "Don't worry," he said firmly. "We won't let him get close to you or your child again." Hân nodded, trying to believe his words. Yet deep inside she couldn't rest easy. When night fell, silence swallowed the tiny house, and in that silence, she always felt as if a pair of unseen eyes were watching her. Fearing for Tom's safety, Hân decided to leave. She moved into a small rented room on the outskirts of town, barely 10 square meters, with peeling walls and a narrow window. But at least there she felt a little safer. Still, life for the 2 of them became that of fugitives. Hân worked late, came home early, changed her route every day, and avoided going out at night. She dared not ask anyone for help, partly out of fear of troubling them, partly out of fear the criminal might trace her through her loved ones. She lived quietly, withdrawn, and utterly exhausted by constant anxiety. Tom, still too young to understand, sometimes asked innocently, "Mom, why aren't we going home anymore?" Hân just hugged him and whispered, "Because this place is closer to where Mommy works. We'll only stay here for a little while, okay?" But deep down she knew they couldn't go back, not yet. At night, when Tom was asleep, Hân sat alone by the small window. The dim streetlight outside cast a pale glow across her tired face and the dark circles under her eyes. She thought of the peaceful days before, when hearing her son's laughter was enough to make her heart light. Now every one of his smiles only deepened her pain, reminding her that she could no longer give him a truly safe home. She closed her eyes, holding back tears. In the darkness, Dieu Hân whispered to herself, "I have to be strong for him." But just then a faint sound echoed from the hallway, like footsteps stopping right outside the door. She froze, her heartbeat pounding in her chest. Darkness swallowed the room once more. The nightmare called fear in Dieu Hân's life was far from over. While Hân was living each day in terror, back in the countryside, Tan had no idea that the woman he cared for was facing danger once again. These days his life was busy, tending to the fields, helping his mother repair the old house. During the day he buried himself in work, pushing away wandering thoughts. But when the sun dipped behind the bamboo grove, an aching emptiness filled his chest. He missed Hân, her gentle eyes, her tender smile when she looked at Tom, her soft voice soothing her son to sleep through the phone. Since Hân and Tom had left, the hollow in his heart only grew wider. Many nights he sat on the porch with a cigarette, not even lighting it, just watching the thin trail of smoke drift away like her fading image in his mind. He had called her many times. At first the phone rang but no one answered. A few days later her number was switched off. Tom began to worry but tried to convince himself she was just busy or didn't want to bother him. She had told him once to spend more time with his mother, with his family, so he tried to let it go. He never imagined that while he was trying to suppress his longing, the woman he loved was living every hour in fear. One evening rain poured down hard, and the wind howled coldly through the trees. Tan sat quietly, listening to the rain beating on the tin roof, when her trembling voice echoed in his memory. "I'm scared of thunder. Every time it rains, Tom cries." The image was so vivid it hurt. He picked up his phone, staring at her contact. Han Red Heart Tom. His finger hovered over the screen for a long time. He wanted to call but didn't. He feared that if the call went unanswered again, it would only break him further. Yet it was that same silence that tormented him the most. An unshakable unease gnawed at his heart, as if something terrible had already happened. That night he dreamed of her, running down a dark road, clutching Tom in her arms, a shadow chasing behind. She turned to him, eyes wide with terror, calling his name soundlessly. He woke up in a sweat, heart pounding, his mind blank. The fear in that dream clung to him even after dawn. The next morning he called her again, still no answer. Anxiety consumed him. He couldn't focus on anything, his thoughts constantly drifting back to the city. Leaning on the wooden railing, he gazed toward the misty skyline far away. Somewhere out there were the woman he loved and the child he cherished as his own. He didn't know how they were, or if they were safe. And he had no idea that at that very moment, while he stared blankly into the gray morning sky far away, Dieu Han was trembling inside a cramped little room, listening to the faint footsteps outside her door, praying for the dawn to come soon. While in the countryside, Tan couldn't shake off a vague sense of unease, and far away, Dieu Han missed him deeply. For countless nights, she hadn't slept soundly. Dreams and reality blended together, tangling her thoughts. In the small, shabby rented room, Han sat by the window, watching the faint glow of the streetlight slip through the old curtain. The streets outside were quiet. Only the steady patter of rain echoed on the tin roof. She gently placed a hand over her chest and sighed. In that fragile moment she wished Tan were there. The man who once made her feel safe with just a warm, steady gaze. If he were beside her now, perhaps she wouldn't have to live every second in fear. She believed he would know how to protect her and little Tom, just as he had before, calm, strong, and unwavering. But now the distance between them was more than just miles. It was the silence stretching endlessly, a fragile thread of hope slowly being pulled taut. Han feared that if it stretched any longer it might break. Lost in thought, she was startled by a sudden knock on the door. She stood up and opened it slightly. Standing there were two plainclothes officers. One of them was Lieutenant Kwong, who had worked with her during the previous break-in. "Good evening, Ms. Han," he said politely. "We're here to check in. Someone reported seeing a suspicious person near this area last night." At the word suspicious person, a chill ran down Han's spine. Her eyes flickered with fear as she recounted everything that had happened, her voice trembling. When they realized she had come face to face with the escaped criminal, the man who had broken into her house and nearly harmed her, Lieutenant Kwong took careful notes. Then he reassured her. "Don't worry. We've requested additional backup. Starting tonight, officers will be patrolling this area, especially the alley behind your place. If anything strange happens, call us right away." Han nodded and forced a faint smile, though her heart felt heavy. As the two officers left, she watched them go, feeling a fleeting sense of safety, but it soon faded, replaced by the same gnawing anxiety. She knew he was still out there somewhere. And indeed, not far away, hidden in the overgrown darkness behind the row of rooms, the fugitive was watching the police's every move. He crouched beside a crumbling wall, his cold eyes following the beam of their flashlights sweeping across the yard. His lips curled into a crooked smirk. "Police, huh? Think you can catch me that easily?" he muttered in a hoarse voice. When the footsteps faded into the distance, he rose slightly, staring toward the room where Han was staying. The dim yellow light spilling from the crack under her door cast a faint glow on his face, revealing the hatred burning in his eyes. He wasn't planning to leave. On the contrary, he was planning something new. Inside, Han was trying to lull Tom to sleep, telling herself everything would be fine, unaware that another storm was brewing outside in the darkness. For days, Tom had been trying to reach her, but her phone still wouldn't connect. At first, he told himself she was just busy, or maybe her phone had broken, or perhaps she simply needed some quiet time. But the longer the silence lasted, the stronger the unease grew inside him, flickering like a small flame he couldn't put out. Lately, his mother's health had improved. She could walk and chat cheerfully again. That afternoon, after making her medicine, Tan sat quietly, staring at his phone. The screen dark, no messages, no calls. His heartbeat quickened. A grim premonition crept in. Unable to stand the silence any longer, he decided to call Mrs. Men, Han's friendly neighbor. She answered after a few rings, her voice hurried. Tan, you didn't hear? Things have been chaotic near Han's place. There's a fugitive on the loose. People say he broke into her house before. The police are searching everywhere. The word struck him like lightning. His hand trembled, gripping the phone tightly. What did you say? He's still around her area. Yeah, they've spotted him a few times, but the police haven't caught him yet. Poor Han and her child, they must be terrified. Her words cut deep, like a blade twisting in his chest. Without another word, Tan jumped to his feet, threw a few things into a bag, locked the door and sped off into the night. The road from the countryside to the city had never felt so long. The cold night wind lashed against his face, but all he could see in his mind was Han and Tom, trembling in a dark room, clinging to each other in fear. Every time that image flashed before him, his chest tightened, and his grip on the handlebars turned white. Streetlights streaked past like blurred lines of light. One thought echoed in his mind. Get there fast. He blamed himself. He shouldn't have left. He should have stayed, should have protected them. Now, all he feared was that it might already be too late. Rain began to fall, first a drizzle, then heavier drops. Tan didn't stop. He only pulled his jacket tighter and pressed on. Every intersection he passed, every turn he took, his heart pounded faster. Han, please be safe, he whispered, eyes glistening. In the distance, the city finally appeared through the curtain of rain. Rows of buildings, scattered lights, and an overwhelming dread swelling in the heart of the man racing toward the woman he loved. He didn't know that, at that very moment, in a cramped little room on the city's outskirts, Dieu Han had just heard a strange sound outside her door. The criminal, after days of hiding, was starving and utterly exhausted. He no longer had the clarity to think about an escape plan. His stomach churned, his throat was parched, and his vision blurred from fatigue. Only one thought remained in his head. He needed something to eat, even if it meant doing something cruel. Evening fell and the rain drizzled. He slunk through narrow alleys, following the old wall behind the boarding houses. When the light in Han's room dimmed, he quietly crept up to the window. Through the slit in the curtain he saw her sitting on the bed, holding Tom in her arms. A crooked smile appeared on his hollow face. He gently pushed the door. It creaked softly. Han, startled, turned and froze. That familiar dark figure stood at the threshold. His eyes were bloodshot, wet with rain, his lips trembling from the cold, but his voice still full of menace. Don't scream, just give me something to eat. I'm starving. Han trembled, clutching Tom to her chest. She tried to stay calm, afraid that if she resisted he would fly into a rage. Please don't hurt us. I'll give you everything I have. He didn't answer. He walked in, flopped down at the table. A foul, rank smell came off him and made Han gasp. She shakily lit the stove and grabbed whatever was left in the cupboard. Some cold rice, a few eggs, a few slices of dried fish. Her hand shook so badly an egg slipped and smashed on the floor. The criminal buried his face in the food, not saying a word. Each loud chew in the cramped room tightened Han's chest. Tom clung to his mother, eyes wide and watery. After he finished eating, he fell back on the floor, exhausted. He spoke like giving an order. I'll rest a bit, then go. Don't do anything stupid. Han nodded, her lips pale, not daring to breathe deeply. She only held Tom tightly, back against the wall, eyes never leaving him for a second. The yellow light fell across her face, full of fear but carrying a fragile hope that he would leave and that tonight would pass in peace. But just when Han thought he'd fallen asleep, he stirred and opened his eyes wide, cold and alert. He wasn't asleep. He was watching her. The small house at the village edge sank into silence. The criminal lay stretched on the floor, pretending to sleep, while Han sat clutching Tom, her heart pounding. Outside, the wind rustled through the erica palms, and the rain's patter on the tin roof sounded sporadic and eerie. Suddenly, a familiar voice called from outside the gate, warm, hurried, and full of worry. Han, are you in there? Han's heart clenched. It was Tan. his voice so familiar it made her want to cry. The criminal sprang up, his bloodshot eyes blazing. "Who's out there? Who did you call?" Before Han could answer, he lunged forward, grabbed Tom and pulled him close, the rusty knife in his hand flashing. "If you open your mouth, I'll kill him right here." "No, please. Don't hurt my child, I beg you." Han sobbed, tears streaming down. "Get out there, tell him to go. Now!" he barked, breath sharp with anger and hunger. Han looked at Tom. Her son was trembling, lips pressed shut, not daring to cry. She knew that if she hesitated even a beat, both of them could die. Swallowing hard, she forced herself to step outside. Outside, the car's light reflected on the rain-soaked yard. Tom stood there, his shape blurred in the night, worry etched on his face as Han stepped out, pale, her hand trembling as she held the door ajar behind her. "What's wrong? I've been calling and calling. Is everything okay?" Tom asked, his voice roughened by rain and concern. Han forced a smile, hiding the hand that shook as she gripped her garment. "No, it's okay. You should go. It's been unsettled here. I don't want you involved." Tom frowned, sensing the strangeness in her voice. His eyes scanned Han's shoulder and caught the flicker of light from inside. A fleeting shadow moving. "Are you sure? Let me come in and check." "No," Han nearly shouted, then quickly softened, masking her panic. "I'm just tired. Go home and rest, really." Tom froze. He looked into Han's eyes. They showed not only fear but a choked, silent plea. He understood immediately. Without another word, Tom nodded subtly and pretended to look away. But as he turned, he gave a small private gesture, a hair-tuck signal they both knew. "I know. Stay calm." Han bit her lip and nodded barely perceptibly. Tears fell in silence. She went back in and closed the door. The criminal watched her with suspicion. "You sure he left?" he asked. "He left, he went," Han replied, voice shaking, clutching Tom who was sobbing. He squinted toward the gate, then slumped back in the chair, exhaling. "Good. I'll rest a bit and then I'll be gone. If you try anything, don't blame me." But he did not know that just outside the fence, Tom was hiding behind a mango tree, phone pressed to his ear, whispering into the receiver. "I'm a relative of the victim, Dieu Han. The suspect has a knife and is holding the mother and child hostage inside. Send forces immediately. I'll stay out here and keep watch." Thunder split the sky and the rain fell harder. In a flash of lightning, Tana's face appeared, cold, resolute, and burning with concern. "Hang on, Han. I'm here." The rain grew heavier, thunder cracking through the night sky, tightening the air with tension. Tan stayed crouched by the fence, eyes fixed on the small house where the yellow light flickered behind the fogged glass. Each passing minute stretched into an eternity. In the distance, the glow of police headlights appeared through the rain. The vehicle stopped about 100 meters away, and 4 officers in bulletproof vests quietly advanced. Lieutenant Kwong signaled for Tan to stay silent, then leaned close and whispered, "We'll split into 2 groups. One will enter from the back. You and I will draw his attention from the front. Your family. Do you know the easiest way to get inside?" Tan inhaled sharply and pointed toward the kitchen. "There's a small path behind the house. The back door is old, just push hard and it'll give. He's in the living room. She and the boy should be close by." Kwong nodded and gestured for his men to move out. The pounding rain muffled every sound. Only their heavy breaths mixed with the furious beating of Tana's heart. Inside, Han sat holding Tom close. The criminal was growing weak, his eyes sunken, the knife loose in his hand. Han quietly pulled a blanket over her son, trying to appear calm. But inside she prayed just one miracle, someone please come. Suddenly, bang! The back door burst open. 2 officers rushed in, shouting, "Police! Drop the knife!" The man spun around, startled, yanking Tom up to shield himself. The blade flashed again. "Stay back. 1 step closer and I'll kill him." Before his words faded, Tom charged through the front door. His eyes widened at the sight. Tom held tight in the man's grasp, Han kneeling on the floor, tears streaming down her face. Time froze for a heartbeat. "Let the boy go!" Tom roared, his voice raw. The criminal sneered, wild and defiant. "Who the hell are you? Think you're some kind of hero?" Tana's eyes turned to ice. He stepped forward slowly, hands raised. I'm no hero, but I'm not letting you touch them ever again, the man shouted, tightening his grip, making Tom cry out. In that brief moment of distraction, Han lunged forward, grabbing his wrist and yanking hard. Now Ton! She screamed. In an instant, Tom leapt and tackled him. The knife clattered to the floor as the two men wrestled violently, crashing into furniture. Police officers surged forward, pinning the man down and handcuffing him as he howled in rage. The house was chaos for a few seconds, then silence. Only the sound of rain and Tom's sobs filled the room. Ton turned to see Han trembling, clutching her son. He stepped forward and wrapped them both in his arms. She broke down, her tears mingling with the cold rain soaking his shoulder. You're safe now. I'm here, Ton whispered, his voice shaking but steady. The police led the criminal away. When the door closed behind them, the heavy air inside seemed to lift at last. Han was still trembling, but deep inside, she felt something new: safety after the storm. Outside, the rain continued to fall. But far on the horizon, the sky was beginning to lighten, the first pale shimmer of dawn breaking through the clouds. Ton held Han and Tom close, three figures standing quietly in the rain, as if they had just crossed the darkest night of their lives to find the light of love, faith, and survival once more. Morning came. Raindrops still clung to the eaves, sparkling like tiny beads of glass. The air smelled of wet earth and distant wood smoke. Inside the small house, Dieu Hân sat silently by the bed. Her eyes were tired and shadowed, but gentler now. Little Tom slept soundly in her arms, his breathing calm after the night's terror. Han gently brushed his hair, her hand trembling, flashes of the intruder still flickering in her mind. Outside, a few officers remained to finish their report. Their low voices mingled with the first birdsong of the day. Ton stood by the doorway, holding a cup of hot tea an officer had handed him, watching Han quietly. He couldn't forget the chaos from the night before. The shouts, the clash of metal, the sound of Tom crying, and that moment when he finally held them safe in his arms. Even now, his chest tightened at the thought. Lieutenant Kwong walked up, placing a hand on his shoulder. You did well. If you hadn't called in time, the outcome could have been much worse. Ton nodded slightly, his voice low. I only did what I had to. I couldn't let them live in fear any longer. When the officers left, only the three of them remained. Weak sunlight streamed through the window, touching Han's face as she looked up at Ton. They stayed silent for a long moment, unsure how to begin. Ton stepped closer and gently rested a hand on her shoulder. Are you okay? Last night, I was terrified I'd be too late. His voice was rough, strained from the sleepless night. Han looked at him, eyes red, and shook her head. I don't know what to say. If it weren't for you, for all of you, my son and I. Her voice broke, tears welling again. Ton said nothing, just sat beside her and quietly took her trembling hand. Warm silence filled the room. Outside, sunlight spread across the wet grass, washing away the traces of the dark night. Tom stirred awake, blinking up at Ton, then asked sleepily, Uncle Ton, are we safe now? Ton smiled, brushing the boy's hair. Yes, we are. From now on, you and your mom don't have to be afraid anymore. Watching them, Han's heart swelled with emotion and gratitude. She didn't know what the future would hold, but she knew this. With Tom by their side, she and her son would never be alone again. Outside, the morning sunlight poured over the small path, golden and soft. It wasn't just the dawn of a new day. For Dieu Hân, it was the dawn of hope, after the longest, darkest storm of her life.
Xin chào mọi người, rất vui được gặp lại mọi người trong video của mình. Chúc mọi người có những trải nghiệm đầy thú vị trong kênh của mình. Hiện tại kênh của mình vẫn đang kể về câu chuyện của người mẹ đơn thân Diệu Hân. Sau những ngày tháng đấu tranh cùng với tên tội phạm thì cuối cùng tên tội phạm cũng đã bị bắt. Hân và Tôm cũng bình an vô sự sau chuỗi ngày khó khăn sống đầy lo lắng. Tiếp theo, những video sắp tới đây sẽ kể về những câu chuyện nào, những tình tiết nào trong cuộc sống của Diệu Hân. Mời mọi người cùng đón xem những video tiếp theo của mình nha. Để không bỏ lỡ video nào thì mọi người nhớ chú ý đón xem. Những video của mình thì được phát hành vào khung giờ 7 giờ tối tại Việt Nam. Và mình rất mong được sự ủng hộ của mọi người. Cảm ơn mọi người đã xem hết video hôm nay. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại mọi người nha.